I don't know that there's been a whole lot of development. I mean, from my standpoint, I've been pretty much in the black with everything. So whether there's a lot of work taking place behind the scenes, I don't know. But as
I
far
don't
as I'm
think
aware,
I don't
nothing has
think you're gonna
changed.
know.
Well, I would like to think the anglers are brought in and at least asked what like, what our opinions are. I mean, whether they want to take our input and apply it is completely up to them. But I feel like the majority of the anglers that I've spoken to are like, well, it would be nice if they at least just like asked us for some input.
Well,
And
and
my my experience in the years I've been doing this is generally angler input has never really mattered.
no, and I'm waiting when you, y'all didn't miss anything. We just don't do things like everyone else and have 15 minutes of commercials and everything else like that. Matt got on like 2 minutes ahead of time and we were just talking. And next thing you know, it goes live because I scheduled it. So I didn't even control it. So that is me. I like it that way. You didn't miss anything. What I will say, Andrew's going to get on. He's running a little bit behind and I kind of want to talk to him, have him on because he was so much a part of the angler committee
Yep.
back when they started that, which which was really a interesting. I'll just wait till he gets on to kind of like go over some of that because I have my thoughts about that. I saw this come up and I don't really know. I don't know what you've been told. Me and you haven't talked since last week. So I don't know
Yeah.
anything about what that committee is or any of that stuff. I'm interested too because it came out that little press release, but it didn't really say anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Am I right? Like it
we
didn't.
Yeah, so the little bit that I've kind of put together on this, I guess. So I had last week I had scheduled a Major League Fishing Anglers Association meeting. That was scheduled for Monday. And then that was postponed so that we could have the phone call on Wednesday, which is when they, broke all the news to us. And then they rescheduled the MLFAA phone call for Friday. And I was up in northern Wisconsin helping my parents out. I wasn't able to attend it, but they sent me a copy of it on Monday or Tuesday to listen to, and it was kind of just like a rookie orientation thing. It was just a couple of us that were invited to it from a rookie standpoint, and through that, it was it it was brought to my attention, at least based on listening to the copy, that the MLFAA is, it's there for angler representation, but with respect to doing anything like this, they can't really partake in it, which was really odd to me. So I think the MLFAA is what helped the anglers set up whatever this other committee is. But
Mhm.
it's really odd to me how it's not going through the MLFAA, that it's another committee, because like in the press release that we got, or that everyone saw, like on Bass Fan, Boyd Duckett said he'll only deal with the MLFAA, but then like the MLFAA is saying that they don't handle this type of um, angler get together. Like they don't want it to be like unionized, and if it becomes unionized, then I guess there's issues with respect to that. So I guess they're helping to get the anglers together and create this new organization, but I'm kind of I walked away questioning what the heck is the MLFAA for at that point,
Well,
if that's supposed to be the advisory committee.
in that, and I didn't. Andrew goes. So anyone that knows me, I do no research on any. If they will ever watch me in the Bassmaster Open deal, That's how I treat my fishing. I don't research lakes. I don't research the fantasy deal. And I sure didn't read the press release. And Andrew goes, "What do you mean you didn't read it?" I'm like, "Why?" I was like, "Look, man, I don't need a press release to know what's kind of going on. If they, to me, a press release, if someone puts out a press release, they're telling you what you want to hear, or what, very little. And so I'd rather just talk to, call somebody or talk to someone. The problem is I don't, it's not that I don't care. It's that I don't think there's anything to talk about yet, which I think I'm right. Like, I don't think there's anything what I mean by that is this: I don't think there's any breaking news from that. I think there's going to be, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I do. Andrew read off the last paragraph. He's like, let me read it to you. And it talked about how all this was done, and Boyd pretty much said he wasn't going to listen to any of it. Correct? In the last paragraph of that news release?
Yeah.
So, which to me, now that is breaking news to a degree, in the sense of some of that, the breaking news isn't what they're doing, it's how people respond and things like that. So I did find that not interesting, but very telling that that's on there.
See, I agree with you. I think the telling part of that is, I think there's a lot more in the works here than what we expect. I really believe that.
Are we going to jump into that?
I mean, I don't know. We haven't talked, so I don't know what your thought process is on this. I'm just saying, I think that I think we're going to see a much different horizon. And
I agree with you. I'm going to state this really early in this video. So before we get into all that, I'm purposely doing this on purpose. Purposely on purpose. How do you like that? I'm doing this right off the bat. I am leaving Friday for Table Rock, and I'm going to the Toyota Championship, which is an MLF. MLF puts it on. I'm sure everyone listening already knew that, or knows MLF and Toyotas, all that stuff. I had a guy on comments was like, yeah, there's a couple comments I'll get into, but one was like, "Hey, all y'all ever do is complain," and I'm like, that's not true at all. We talk about some things. We do complain about some things. I think our complaints are very valid. And to be honest with you, it's not so much the complaints. We kind of want other people to understand what's going on and why we're complaining, or why we don't think something's right, which I think is okay. It's because some guy was like, "Hey, if you don't like it, go get a real job," which I'm gonna get on that one too, because I'd love to hear what is considered a real job. But the thing I'll say is it maybe we do complain about some of this stuff, and I'll be honest, the BPT to me is not doing any, like, it's irrelevant to me. It's very relevant to you, big time, but to me it's not. And I don't mind voicing my opinion, because I don't think that that's right what's going on with you. What I will say is this: we'll complain about some things, but I'm here to tell you right now, the MLF Toyota series, this is the only thing I'm talking, is the best trail in the country. I don't know if I can say that anymore, that's not a complaint. It's literally, of every trail, of the hundreds of trails in the country, it is the number one trail in the country to fish 3 events. They pay back unreal. The incentives are unreal. And we're basically fishing the third best tournament in the country, behind, behind the Classic and the Red Crest. This is the third best tournament that they will put on, and because you're 200,000 for first, and it is the only one that you can go to that pays that much, that if you want to call them amateurs, like, all you have to do is, you don't have to qualify for the Toyotas. You can just enter them, and if you qualify for this, you get there. No invite, no qualification on the sense of getting to the Toyotas. I think there's in writing, you have to qualify. There's a BFL qualification to get in the Toyotas, but I've never seen anyone get turned down for the Toyotas if you enter quick enough. So what I'm saying is I don't know. That's the best thing I could ever say. It's the best compliment you get. I'm a little worried. I'm hoping that Boyd or any of those guys don't touch the Toyotas. Like, leave them alone, please, because they're the number one thing going. And that's what I'll say. So I don't complain. We don't complain about everything. Like, they're doing, my buddy Lucas just qualified for the All-American. I will say that I was kind of talking to him about things that I got to do when I was in the All-American. I think it's changed and it might not be as good, which, is disappointing, but I still think it's pretty good. But I just wanted to get that out there right off the bat to, like, hey, we might complain, but, like, man, they do good things. And there's some good people in that organization.
Yeah, it's I think it's no different than any other jobs, right? I mean, especially something you're passionate about. We definitely recognize value in all of these tournament organizations to a point, but we also want, things to be changed, whether it's for individual personal motives or whether it's for like the good of the sport. So I think a big part of it is what we're not that anyone cares what we're saying, but
Right.
we're to have open discussions about things are generally what can help promote change or at least come up with solutions to things. And in this case, I think I think there are a lot of really good positives about all the circuits that are out there. But I if I had to guess, Todd, I think your Toyota series will be changed. I think it, I don't. Yeah, well, I personally, like, if you were to ask me, I think there's going to be consolidation in the tournament world. Maybe not next year, maybe not 3 years, but I think we're going to see consolidation at some point. And with that will mean that there's probably circuits that get cut. There'll be changes made to existing circuits, and depending how that all happens, whether there's a buyout, whether there's a merger, whether there's bankruptcy, I can't necessarily. I have no clue. I just think over the next couple of years, we're going to see major consolidation.
And you said something that was interesting. Well, for one, I want to say this. You said, "Hey, what does it really matter? Like us, like who's really listening?" Well, I think everyone's listening, and the reason I think everyone's listening is because who else is talking about it? Like, legitimately having true conversations about it. Not because the problem is you can't have too many true conversations within the BPT guys, like the guys that are going to stick around. For any of y'all listening, you can't go against these guys. You can't. They will. You can, but it takes a certain person to be able to do it. And what I mean by that is like you have to be able to withstand things that they could pressure you as far as money, sponsorship, airtime, getting letters, getting phone calls, things like that. I mean, there's always a chance any one of us we can start feeling some pressure too by some people in that organization, from sponsors, from whatever it is. So we're always slightly taking a chance coming on here and doing that. And we've kind of talked about that. But if we don't do it, you can't get any of the guys head up in the BPT that tell you the honest truth. They'll give you a slightly nice little version, but I don't think it'll be really eye-opening. And then you got other people that are just, I don't think a lot of guys know. And I think they're just being quiet. And so I do think it matters that we're up here. I do think people are listening because I think we're trying to be as honest and upfront and open as possible. But I will say the reason I'm scared to death that they mess up the Toyotas is this. I get the opens, right? And the qualification into there. And the 3 opens that they used to have before to do that was pretty cool. But the problem is like, and we can go into this whole tournament deal, but the Toyotas are so good because you get to fish 3 fairly big events to qualify for an actual championship, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to do it. And what I mean by that is I can like my Toyotas this year were Rayburn. I don't even want to pick mine because it was Rayburn. You follow. What was it? Rayburn. You follow Rayburn. Yeah. But a lot of the other ones are fairly close. Like you're very, they try to get them to where it's a region deal. That way, if you go to places, like you can kind of, what I would say is, I don't want to say jackpot Toyotas because I fish all 3 of them. I jackpotted, I guess, Lake of the Ozarks, but only because I was there in the opens and I always go to that event because the schedule's there. So I don't want to say jackpot because it's a bad word to use, because we think of jackpot as like fishing your home lake and nothing else, and that's what you're doing. What I'm saying is you can kind of pick and choose Toyotas based on if they're semi-close. That's all, like close in schedule. But there's no way I'm going to go to fish a Toyota in Florida like you would an open, because even if you do phenomenal down there and get a check, you lost money, right? So like, I'm scared to death that they mess up the Toyotas. I always thought, me and Andrew, I assumed too, when the whole merger came together, we thought that, I didn't talk to you, Matt, but me and Andrew, we all thought the invitationals were going to go away. We thought the tour would go away, or it would be somehow figured out within the Toyotas. I kind of thought that's where they were going.
I think a lot of it,
because let me say, the the tour, when we fall fished it and when all that was going down, they blamed it like it was a losing deal. And so I was like, well, if it's a losing deal over BFLs, Toyotas, and everything else, that's what they're going to scrape. And so that's why I always thought that's where it was going.
Yeah. Well, that was ultimately the plan, was to get rid of the pro circuit. And I guess then, we turned in the invitationals, but you got to remember they made the change where they dropped it to an 80% payback. So on all of our entry fees, they took $6,000. So when they formed it, my understanding is that the first year of the invitationals was going to be kind of a trial thing. If they could keep it full, they would keep it around, because, you got 150 guys, 150 person field times $6,000. You're looking at $900,000 that they could apply to wherever, right? Whatever other expenses. So they made the invitationals become a revenue source for them. And because the field remained full all year, I don't know that it surprised any of us anglers moving forward that they would continue to have it, because it was a profitable circuit for them. But there was major concern when they reduced the payouts and created, I guess, the invitationals at that time, that it would not be around more than a year, because they didn't know if they'd be able to keep a full field. But they were able to do it. So, right now, to me, the invitationals, and I have no idea what type of money is made on any of the circuits, but I know that, they reduced our payout, and, by over the course of a full field for 6 tournaments, $900,000. So I assume that goes to the bottom line in some form or fashion.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's just kind of wild to me, because I feel like, at least whenever everything kind of went down originally, I was always really confused as to why they went to such a huge field to begin with on the BPT, just for the fact that they were so successful in the small fields, the really tiny, like made for TV fields of Major League Fishing originally. In that particular situation, I was under the impression, don't fix it if it's not broke. And I just felt like there was probably good intentions as far as, hey, we're going to make it this great big trail, we'll catch, weigh, release, so on and so forth. But now you're seeing things revert back to the original stasis. I mean, truth be told, it's going to end up being the FLW tour of old, and it's probably going to cut to 25 or 30 guys when it's all said and done. And I mean, I think you're going to see the old school Major League Fishing come about in the next 3 or 4 years anyway. But the thing is they don't want to kick out all these guys and say, hey, you don't have a place to land other than the Toyotas. And that's why the Invitationals are going to stick around. They'll rename them. They'll probably rename them again because they've renamed it now 2 times. But I really think that that's the only reason. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's a cat, like it can be a cash cow. I mean, you're talking $6,000 a tournament. They're still cutting payback. They continue to cut paybacks from whenever I left in 2019, and they're still charging, if not more than what they were then. I think they are charging more now. So, I mean, they're making money over that. But the main thing is to try to retain the anglers that they end up cutting to give them a space to be able to compete at a higher level, make a good check, make some money without losing the angler entirely. Because the reality is when these 30 guys, 35 guys, however many get cut, when they leave, they've got to make some hard decisions. Do I go to the NPFL? Do I fish the invitationals? Do I go to the Bassmaster Opens? And that's real. I mean, like, or do I retire? And you're going to have quite a few retire. I mean, that's the reality because they don't want to start back over. They don't want to go back and do something else. And so it's just an unfortunate situation that, I mean, it feels like we just gone full circle in this whole thing. Major League Fishing, they started at one point, they bought FLW, and then we're coming all the way back around to where we originally were. With just more anglers that one over the other, however it ends up. But I mean, it's just kind of wild how it's all kind of gone full circle to me.
When Andrew, so when Major League Fishing bought FLW, and you were part of like that, you were a major part in that angler association committee. What, like, can you fill us in on like kind of how the process worked? Like, what did you guys do to kind of, because you really did make some good changes. Yeah. And I'm just curious if you think that that's, what that process was. And then at the same time, do you think we have that same potential in this scenario?
So we had to, when we first started, it was 3 of us. And I won't name any names who the other 2 were because they've never really come out and said it. But we all kind of got together and we were like, man, this isn't right. What's going on is not right. They're taking advantage of us. I've had enough, and I'd hit a point where I'd had enough. I was really perturbed. And so basically we got together and we kind of wrote out this petition deal, and we discussed it at first to kind of release it to the public and do this big public petition. We didn't think that would be very effective. So we just did it who was on the tour, actual anglers on the tour. That's the only people that could sign. That's the only people that could be a part of the movement. And our goal was to get what I would consider vast majority of the field. So 2/3. I'm not saying, half is never enough. 2/3 of the field, because at 2/3 of the field, you have the vast majority. Then you actually have to take it serious, in my opinion, at that point. We got together, got this communication together, put together this release, and sent an email to Kathy Fennell, Trish Blake, sent it to quite a few people in FLW. And quite honestly, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I had to lobby hard to get some people's signatures on that deal, some really high-level pros. And I was told no by a few pros because they were like, I ain't going to take a chance. I'm not going to risk it. But I'd gotten enough.
I want to talk about all that too. I have no problem talking about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, but so they were some of them were terrified. Absolutely terrified.
How many did you get? How many total, like percentage?
You only get 80?
I mean, we were like 80,
87%.
88%. Yeah, 87, 88%. Which was, I mean, truth be told, that was, I mean, we were almost 100%. And honestly, the only ones that didn't sign were a handful of the really top guys, or some guys that just didn't even care. Like, they were like, just keep it the same, like, whatever. Like, they didn't care. They had so much money coming in from their own business or whatever that they could care less.
Or ML.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go there. But there was definitely some conflict of interest, and they were 100% against it. The only way that we got anything done was because we had some of the top guys' signatures on there, and they kind of lobbied for it as well, because it wasn't to benefit me. It wasn't to benefit the top 10 anglers on the group. It was to benefit the whole group. And that was our whole objective, was to benefit everybody. Well, for MLF in y'all's current state with Bass Pro Tour, I'll be honest, the only way y'all have a shot in this situation is you got to get guys like Wheeler, Jordan Lee, Connell, Mark Daniels Jr., Alton Jones Jr. You don't have to get all of them, but you got to get a combination of a handful of them that are willing to stick their necks out. But the reality is they're not going to. They won't. Because they're already there. They don't have to do anything.
They don't have to do anything, true. But here's the other thing. So, like, those meetings, if any of those meetings ever got to the public, it would be very damning for a lot of those people that are putting on those meetings, that are giving those meetings. Because I've listened to some. I've listened to some I probably wasn't supposed to. And I've listened to the ones that I was supposed to, that I was invited to. And when you sit in there, you just sit in there and like I sat in there with one guy and we laughed throughout the entire meeting, just dying laughing, because I was like, there's no way people can like take this serious. And like, are people really think that this is like true? Like the stuff that was being said, I was like, man, there's no way. And like people thought it was true. And we just sat back and laughed, just going, I can't believe they're saying this. I understand why they have to think they need to say it, but whatever. But what I'll say is that what I learned from all that, I learned the greatest thing I ever did was when Andrew and them did that. And I was very new on tour. Was that my first year, Andrew? Going into the second year, I believe.
Yeah,
I think I fished a year.
How many years did you fish?
2.
Yeah, it was going into your second year.
It was going into my second year. So yeah. I was really understanding, man. And like I said, I had quite a few connections within. Like, I didn't come up in there like as some rookie who didn't know anything, in the sense of, I mean, I knew a lot of the guys on tour, been fished against them since, I just didn't fish the tour, but I knew tons of guys, a lot of them, a whole bunch of them. So I went in there with a little bit more, knowledge of what was going on. I wasn't I'm not dogging the young kids, but I wasn't 20 something and really didn't know how all of it worked. But I was very shocked at how it started all going down. And then I started getting to see some of the people and how they reacted to what Andrew was talking about, was like not wanting to sign. I mean, I was worried about signing, and this is what I'll get into about the other deal. I was worried about signing because Costa, all my sponsors aligned with FLW, and Costa was one of the main ones. And Costa was like my mains, that they were the reason I was there on tour. I mean, I'd qualified all the times, but like, I was like, hey, so I was really unsure about how I was going to be, how that was going to affect me. And you got to realize, like I said, I wasn't 20. I was 30 something, 37, 38 years old, going, I finally got a shot when it pertains to the money part of it to do it. And now I'm going to just go maybe throw it away. But I ended up signing the deal. We signed it. Then I saw who signed it, who didn't. Then I started realizing why some of the guys signed it that didn't really sign it for the same reasons I did. I started finding out that some guys signed it just because I think they were in a lot more talks with FLW, and they were like, hey, look, we're going to sign it, but just to show that we're in solidarity, but we're not really like that. I learned that one real quick.
I'll tell you one thing.
Am I correct about that, Andrew?
Yeah, there was one conversation I had, and I won't name names, but it burned me pretty bad. And it was a guy that I looked up to for a really long time, and he's a really good fisherman. And he was part of the original angler committee that FLW had chosen. So he was one of the main committee guys. So like same as like MLF, they have like 8 board members that help like directionalize everything that's going on. He was one of those kind of people. I'm not saying he's on that board, but he was one of those people. And I called him and I was like, hey, I'd really like to have a conversation with you about what's going on. This is why we're doing this, this, and this. And he told me straight to my face that he did not agree with what we were doing, that he was part of the reason that they had made those decisions as far as cutting this and adjusting that, and that he felt offended that, what we were doing, because those were decisions that he helped make, and he thought they were the best decisions you could make. And I kind of jokingly said to him, I was like, well, y'all are obviously making some really bad decisions then, if that's the decision you made. And we both got off the phone, and we've never spoken since. And it didn't, it was one of those, like, you go your way, I'm going to go my way, but I don't agree with you and you don't agree with me, and we're just going to just be what it is. And it, it is what it is at this point. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, because that angler board had to make decisions for everybody, and they voted on it. And that was, honestly, there was only one angler out of the entire angler board that signed that deal. Only one out of their original angler board that agreed with what we were doing. Even though what we were doing was for the betterment of all of us. It wasn't just for me. It wasn't just for a handful of other guys. It was for all of us.
I agree.
And it was pretty, it wasn't even asking very much.
It wasn't this wild thing.
No.
Like we didn't hold much power. So
No.
it was like, we were just like, hey, this will at least make us happy. And to be honest, we felt, and Andrew, you weren't here for that. We felt like for once, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had a lot of conversations with Kathy, right?
Yeah.
Like, she was, regardless of whether she could do anything or not, it always felt like she listened and try it. If nothing else, someone just listening to you and going, hey, that's great, but we can't do that, is a lot better than saying, well, I don't really want to listen to what you have to say. I commend Hank, for going on and listening to y'all when y'all did that opens thing with them. And then I was in the comments. I mean, regardless of what the opens did, my relationship with Hank now feels that if I went and talked to him, regardless of whether he could do anything or not, he knows we're coming from a good place, and that's it. We've said good and bad things, and Hank hasn't treated me differently. If anything, treated me better, in the sense of he's always willing to talk, always willing to listen. And I'm not asking them to, like, hey, I think we shouldn't have any entry fees in the opens. Like, that's not reasonable, right? But I'm like, there's little stuff, like, even if it's just the changing of rules for certain things to make it more fair, he's always willing to listen. And that's kind of what we want.
And I was worried when I did that deal. I'm the ringleader, and I was the ringleader of that deal. And I didn't want to be. Like, that wasn't a position I wanted to be in, because it turned into just like a simple, like, we were complaining about it. It wasn't right. And then all of a sudden it was like this huge deal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get to fish again in my life. And so I just went all in because I didn't know anything else to do. But I swear, I'd always had a great relationship with Kathy and Trish. And I was like, they are going to hate my guts, because I have just started this huge movement against them. But I'm going to tell you one thing. It grew mine and Kathy's relationship tenfold. Like, we are the best of friends. If I see her walking down the hallway, she will make a point to walk all the way. I don't care if she's talking to people. She will make a point to come to me, gives me a hug, asks me how my family is, tells me how much she misses me. Like, I love Kathy Fennell to death. She's one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. Like, super awesome person.
Yeah, and she's been great with me. And like I said, that respect thing of her at least listening in the conversations, regardless of whether they can do anything, it did, and it didn't. And I'll bring this up. You ask about this. Do you blame, this question? Will you hold those that don't step up in a negative light? The problem is it's not that they don't step up. It's some people go through this life thinking that no one knows. And I think some of these people are really naive. And I don't know who it was you were talking to that y'all didn't have a great relationship.
I've never said his name to anybody.
Well, the problem I had is I thought one person, same deal. I had talked to a lot, great advice, all these different things. And then when it came down to it, there was a conversation had that I listened to, and I don't think I've spoke, and it wasn't to me, but I heard it. I was right there and listened, kept my mouth shut, whatever. And I was like, man, what it was like, it wasn't a slap in the face, but I was going, dude, what are you doing? You can't have these conversations. This isn't like, do you know what you're really saying here? And what I mean by that is like, he was talking about things. I used to get mad at guys while they were on tour. Okay. Because I knew some guys that fished the tour when I wasn't. So I was young. I had zero sponsors. I was qualified. I qualified just about every year I fished the Toyotas. I qualified with them, and they were begging me to come fish the tour. Now they had everything paid for, right? From this, I'm not this. It turned out they got it great, but the company has gone under since then. That it wasn't a very good company. They were shisty and whatever, but they were like, hey man, and they were telling me all these things like, I get to fish against the best guys. Don't you want to do that, Todd? And all these different things. I'm like, yeah, give me 50 grand, dude. I'm there. I'll show up, man. I'll be like, you won't even have to like convince me, but you're telling me to go put up my own 50 grand while you're getting all yours paid for. But you're not bringing up the money. You're bringing up all these other things about competition and this is my dream and all these things. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, by the way, none of those guys are fishing the tour anymore. None of them. Not one of those guys that was in that conversation. And so same thing with here. He was saying a lot of things. And I'm like, man, you're telling a bunch of people who aren't in your situation to stick around and find out and everything's going to be good for you. And I'm like, dude, you can't be in your position telling all these people trying to get to where you're at. But it was a bad deal. I think, I don't realize maybe he just didn't realize what he was doing, but it didn't turn out. And I've never looked at him since the same.
I mean, the big problem, Matt, is the fact that I would love for an angler group to get together and it work. But the problem is there's not enough guys willing to step up and stick their necks out and risk what they have currently to help the guys that, are either in the bottom of the points or rookies or whatever. And it's sad because the reality is even if they don't step up right now, if y'all don't get a true group together and get some kind of voice together, and I mean like 3/4 of the field, the next time that it happens, it's going to be worse. And the next time after that, it's going to get even worse because it's never going to go the right direction after this. I hate to be that person, but it will never go the right direction after this. This is the one chance that the anglers are starting to be heard. They're starting to hear some grumblings. They've got some movement behind it. I mean, I actually had a comment yesterday on a video. I was telling Todd about it, that it's crazy that there's so many guys that are kind of not speaking up. You don't hear BPT guys really speaking up other than behind the scenes. They're really not saying it out, and they can't. And a lot of times I understand you can't. And that's why like me and Todd and Duncan or some of these guys are calling a spade in this situation, because we have friends in that situation like you, that I'm going to call it for what it is because it brings light to the situation. It's going to make it better for these anglers, because sometimes even though they have a platform doesn't mean they have a voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so because they can't put their foot in their mouth, because like in essence, you have your rookie year on the BPT this year, right? Why in the heck would you try to screw that up right now? Even though they set you up, I'm not necessarily saying for failure, but they put you in a position to where it's not what you signed up for, And so it's just hard. I mean, it's a really hard situation for these BPT guys. Like I all I can be is try to help them, and and do what I can and try to bring more awareness to the situation, because there's a lot that I haven't even talked about that I actually called Todd earlier about it. And because I have a video that I did and I was like, hey, should I release this video? And we talked about it for like almost an hour, and I didn't release the video, and I haven't. But it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of other stuff that people have no idea about, and it's just
you'll have to fill me in at some point.
You know all of it, or you know some of it, but yeah, I'll fill you in on it.
I mean, it's crazy to me to think, like, I know a lot of the emphasis is being put on the rookies in terms of like we're the ones getting screwed, but I really can't stress enough how, like, I feel really bad. And I've had conversations with other anglers and other circuits where it's not affecting them at all, but there's going to be guys that routinely make the Red Crest Championship, or who have made several of them, that will get cut. Like, we're not, we get a ton of comments from guys who are like, oh, the bottom, the cream of the crop rises to the top, and the guys who aren't performing should get, kicked to the wayside. Well, we're not necessarily talking about it. We're talking about a lot of people that have performed very well. Maybe they had one or two bad years, but then some good years mixed in. So it's not like we're talking about anglers that are not performing. A lot of these guys have performed very well. And the reality is they came over there with the idea that as long as they were inside the top 90% roughly, they could make a career there. And now all of a sudden it's gone from, you were, for the first 5 years, you've been in the top 90%. You're great. But now you're going to have to be like top 50 percentile, basically.
Do y'all, y'all, Andrew knows this. I'm not doing this research. Have y'all done, does anyone have a kind of an idea on who's, I know y'all probably, I don't know if anyone knows the actual how to get the numbers perfect, but I mean, I'm sure some of y'all have an idea of who's potentially going out, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was a email sent out that showed the current rankings. And, when I look at it, it's like, I mean, the majority of the guys who are fishing the BPT have made a name for themselves. When I say majority, basically everyone, right? So like when I look at when I look at the list, I'm like, big name, big name, big name, big name. And it's like, how are they just being kicked to the curb? And I know there's arguments that some people have greater value than other people, but these are all people that have value, in my opinion, in some form or fashion. And so I mean, I'm sure that list probably is part of the reason why there's, and I say some hesitancy from anglers to join in with some of this. But again, I don't know anything. I'm completely in the blue on everything that's going on behind the scenes. So I'm assuming that there is some kickback from some anglers, because the reality is, if you were to look at that list, I mean, the fact that a lot of guys are going to be able to drop a bad year means if you're in the top 25 right now, you're probably pretty much locked into that. Well, 25 out of 80 is almost, it's roughly a third of your field. So at that point, that's a lot of people that might not be willing to, stick their head out to do it. And what I wish there was more. I mean, I said it right off the bat. I wish there was some more open discussion between the organization and the anglers. But what I really mean by that is, like, it's been from my perspective, it's been very cold. Meaning it's been cut and dry. This is what it is. When there was an angler advisory, blah, 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 that was noted, it was like, well, I'm not talking to them. And it's like, well, we should create some form of communication here. Whether you want to tell us in those meetings we're not changing anything, it would be nice for you at least to hear our thoughts. Like, let's have the discussion, and ultimately you guys have the power to do whatever you want. And if it is simply a matter of, guys, we're not going to listen to you, okay, well, let us know that, because I think that would change the approach of the anglers as well. Because from my, again, outside looking in, it looks like the anglers are trying to be pretty professional and businesslike in this approach. And, you know, from what I've seen, it's been mostly a cold shoulder. And again, I can't stress enough, I know nothing. I have had no communication with any other anglers that are supposedly on this angler advisory board. I'm looking at the same press releases that everyone else has said. But, you know, really, like, to go back and kind of create that comparison to, like, Andrew, what you did when we were with FLW, like, a lot of that I feel like FLW was pretty clear with the anglers, like, guys, we're in a pretty bad position.
Yeah.
Like, we can do some things, we can't do other things. But if we don't do this, there won't be a place for anybody to fish.
Exactly. Yep.
And as soon as that was relayed to the anglers, I think it was like, I felt like everyone came together and it was like, well, we still want a place to fish. What can we do? And a lot of the things that you were able to get changed for us were not necessarily money things. You know, they weren't things that were going to cost more, but they were things that were going to make life better for the anglers, right? Yep. And that's what we said we wanted. I wish we had some form of communication from BPT that, guys, this is what our thought process is. You know, right now it's simply, well, we can't make anything out of 50 anglers or 80 anglers. It's got to be cut to 50. There's a lot more behind this process, a lot more reasoning as to why these decisions are being made, whether it's there's no money, whether it's outside sources telling them we need a smaller field to make household names out of every 50 angler, whether it's positioning for a buyout, whether it's positioning for a merger. I don't know what it is, but I wish there was some form of communication from BPT to the anglers that would at least give some insight as to why this was made.
Well, the reality is, if the angler advisory board that y'all have currently, they said it's 8 anglers, right? If this comprised angler board was doing its job and everybody was happy, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. So obviously, in my opinion, that's when we went past the angler board to begin with at FLW and went above them. And we all got together and created our own, basically, angler board, per se. Actually, we did. And we create this whole brand new angler board that has the voice of everybody. And I'm not saying that the 8 people on y'all's angler board at MLF at the Bass Pro Tour don't have everybody's best intentions in mind, because I don't even know who it is. But obviously, we're in a current situation to where there's a lot of people really unhappy, a lot of anglers really unhappy, and nobody's speaking up about it, and nobody's doing anything about it. Now, as far as Dusty sits there and says, I wish you guys would stop beating around the bush. There's certain things that we can't talk about.
Well, I want to comment on that.
Yeah, but there's definitely some certain things. And, this this email that Matt's referring to, I would love to see if it's the same list that I got. And I didn't get it from you, but I got a list. It's a very interesting list, and it is a very interesting group of anglers on said list that would be potentially cut.
And I don't think that list, I mean, I don't believe it's a secret. Anybody could go figure it out. I mean, it's simple math.
Yeah,
you take the standings and you drop their worst year. I mean,
yeah, but the one I got was more of a screenshot of said email, but the actual email and how they're gonna do their cut, how they're doing the drop a season, kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's real. I mean, I was literally telling Todd, I got an anonymous message with the screenshot in there. I have no idea who I got it from. There's no name on it. It's literally the screenshot, and I didn't even say anything back other than thanks. That was it. But from the outside looking in, and this is just speculation from somebody who has a business, been around business for a long time, been around a lot of businesses that have been bought and sold and all that stuff. Anytime you start seeing a thinning of employees, B, you start seeing cost cutting to the extreme amount, which in this situation you're seeing big cuts being made. You're seeing hosts getting sent to the sent to the barn. There's a bunch of things going on. Anytime you start seeing those thins, there's a lot of times it's either going to be a merger, a buyout, or some sort of something like that. They're trying to show as much profit on the books as they can. So whenever they go to sell a business, it looks as profitable as possible. Not saying that's exactly what's happening in this situation, but that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. Now, would that be a bad thing? I'm not going to say it would be a bad thing at all. It might be a great thing to get new leadership and get new funding into the business. Like, it might be the best thing ever happened to Major League Fishing. But I think that's the reason there's a lot of radio silence, is because they can't talk about it. They literally cannot talk about it. They've signed a lot of documents saying they can't talk about it, and that's why they can't. I think there's anglers, BPT anglers, that know exactly what's going on. And to your face, they're telling you I don't know what's going on, but they actually know what's going on. And that's the reality of it, because there's always going to be a select few guys that know everything that's happening, and everybody else is left in the cold until the ball drops. And I really think we're a couple weeks out from seeing that ball drop, unfortunately, or whatever it is.
I agree with everything you're saying. What the problem with us not being able to fully talk about it is we put it this way: when all that stuff went down the first time and we all left, right? We left because we knew so many conversations and different things, and we could go on and on and on about it. But in reality, we tried to give everyone enough of what we knew about to go, this is why. There's so many things that go on right now that, like in fishing, that we know a lot about. Like, there's so many things that I know about how a guy won a tournament and how it was such a shady deal and how they possibly got information after cutoff and all this stuff. And you're like, oh, you heard about it. No, I hear about stupid stuff all the time. And most of the time you don't hear about it. But then there's things that, like, there's weird. I know when with cheaters, right? It's very hard to come out against a cheater because you look like if I said that right now, guys will get on here on the comments, because these comments on here, some of them I wouldn't say they're bad, but I don't know, they're whatever. Instantly there's a guy on there that knows nothing about anything, doesn't even know what term you're talking about, and go, oh, he's a hater. And I'm like, well, it's pretty interesting. And all they know is this guy won a tournament, you complain about it, and then you're the hater and you're this and you're that. And I don't want to be the guy to come on here and accuse a guy of cheating, because chances are in BPT and a lot of these organizations, guys are getting caught on camera, and yet it takes a lot for them to get in trouble, right? So just saying it, you're really looked down upon, which is crazy. And then you got fans going over here, they're a fan of that guy. I knew that guy when he was 9 years old, and he made good grades in school. He wouldn't have ever done that. Like, stupid stuff, right? But when certain guys get text messages, right, after some guy wins back-to-back tournaments, and I get a text message from a guy I hadn't heard from in a year, from a saltwater guy, and another guy gets a message from another saltwater guy, and we get them on the same days, and they don't know each other. And he's like, hey, glad that guy's fishing bass tournaments. We kicked him out of saltwater tournaments years ago for cheating. And you're like, really? And so then all of a sudden things start popping up, and you start kind of doing some research and looking around, and more things. And none of it makes sense. And you're like, oh, I see it now, right? It's not just the one random comment. It's like multiple things, and failing polygraph tests and things not happening. And you're like, oh yeah, this guy's probably a cheater. But if you'd have come out there and said it, you'd have just gotten reamed on. And so we know a lot of things that are going on in a lot of this stuff. And like I said, we're just putting together the pieces, and they don't add up. And so we know something's going on. That's why we don't necessarily like go on anything based on just this is exactly what happened. We're going, okay, we're kind of putting the pieces together, and we kind of see where it's trending.
Well, there's actually a comment on here. I think Clay just posted it about he was surprised to see me go heavy handed on MLF when Luz is such a big sponsor of MLF. I have a great relationship with Luz and Strike King and all my sponsors, truly. What I said though wasn't defamation, wasn't hearsay. All I'm doing is bringing more of an outlook to it for anglers that can't speak up for themselves. If I hate to say it, if I get fired because I spoke something that was true that nobody really wanted to know that was true, you know what? It is what it is at this point. But there's certain things that I'm not willing to talk about that would cost me more of that than what I have. The videos I posted yesterday and the video I posted last week, I mean, come on. Like, I'm sorry. I will say it right now. Boyd Duckett being the CEO and president of Major League Fishing and fishing the competition is a red flag to me. It would be a red flag to me if I was fishing the actual BPT. I don't think that's a good move. That's like what's his name, Jackie Moon in Tropic or whatever on the Flint, Michigan Tropics. He's the president, CEO, plays for the team, the marketing director. He's everything. I mean, there has to come a point of a conflict of interest, and Boyd is being Jackie Moon. I'm not saying that he wouldn't do a really good thing by just being the CEO and president. He might run that thing and it'd be the perfect thing. I just don't think you can't have both. Like, I think there's a conflict there. Not saying he's a bad person. Not saying he hasn't done great in business. He's a great businessman, actually. He's fantastic. I mean, he's made millions of dollars. He's a super smart, very educated businessman. But, I actually think that I think they should have cut from 80 to 25 and go back to the original format of MLF, personally. I mean, if you're going to make the cut, make the cut. Like, and just cherry pick who you want. Just be done with it.
I've always said there was too many.
Yeah.
I complained when we were on tour. I complained all the time. And I said, I wish, and it was really bad on tour because it was 160 guys and no one was qualifying.
Yeah.
Like I always say that I qualified all those times. I said that because I want to let people know I qualified. But then there was the guy over here that was buying a Ranger and he was automatically in. And there's guys that fish the tour that never fished a Toyota Series or any of those things and never qualified in and were just paying money. They bought a Ranger every year. And so I was like, and I was very always open about that. I'm like, there was guys on tour wanting to be taken serious as professional anglers. And I'm like, dude, we're not professional when they're letting in that guy who just bought a Ranger last year get priority entry in. How are we professionals just because you bought a freaking boat? And I was like, so I always wanted to, but they looked at it as, and I get it. They were trying to get those entry fees is what they wanted. And I understand that, but I was like, I kind of talked to some of the anglers like, man, you can't have it both ways. And but the problem is if you wanted 160 of those FLW guys at the time to fall in line, and if we really wanted to do it the right way, we should have cut to the top 50. And then we would have been taken more seriously. The problem is, how are you going to get the other 110 guys to agree to that? Because they know they wouldn't have ever been in the top 50. I'm fine with the elites and all these companies shrinking down because I'm like, man, because my view on this, this is the way I always looked at it. And I always wanted to do, if I qualified to get there, I wanted to be there and make it. And when I mean make it, like make money, like it was worth it. It wasn't like, oh, I got there and I have to spend more money because I'm here. I wanted to I wanted it to be extremely hard to get there. And when you got there, at least when you were there, and maybe it's going to be for 3. I mean, seeing the NFL players complaining about, 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's like you spend 5 years in the NFL, you're good.
I really think
But
Major League
we get
Fishing
to
has
we're
right.
here 5 years, and you know what happens to us? The guys in the elites, half of them, 5 years, they got way more credit card debt.
Yeah.
So I don't mind if they cut it. I just knew that's how it was going. What sucks is if you knew that was the case going into it, right? That's where I would want it. That's why I was like, I don't trust what they're going to do, because I knew every couple years they would change it. So you would get there, and next thing you know, you might get cut, or they would find a way, and this is what's going to happen. They're always going to manipulate it to where the Matt Steffens of the world who get there, who figured out a way to get there, right? He's not in the same boat as the guy that's been there 8 years, right? On an NFL deal, dude, they don't care how old. There's some contracts in there, I will say, that they have to play out. But man, talent's going to keep you there. And Matt might finish, way above everyone else and not still be there next year, based on what some guy did 7 years ago. And
that's
do
not
it
what
that way, but
I mean,
Major
League Fishing had the right formula before they expanded. They really did. They were killing it on TV, like absolutely killing it on their, like, where they'd put 6 people out there. They'd fish a body of water, small body of water. They could fish countless lakes throughout the country. Like literally, they could fish 100 seasons and not fish every lake twice. Like, I mean, there's that many available lakes for only 6 or 8 or 10 guys. When you talk about streaming platforms, made for TV stuff, they had it down. And then they expanded, and now we're in a situation where they're cutting back. And they're like, man, we got to make the field smaller for TV purposes. We can highlight our guys even more. Great. Honestly, though, the best formula is to just, I mean, if you're going to cut it, just say, hey, points don't matter at this point. We're reforming the way Major League Fishing is. These are our 25 guys. This is how you're going to requalify for it, is fishing through the invitationals. We're going to take 5 every year, and that's your only way. If they would do that, and they would suck, and I'm just going to tell you right now, it would, for guys like Matt that just qualified in, it'd be terrible. But we're leading to that path anyway, just like we did with the invitationals before. They eventually cut out the Forestwood Cup completely. We knew that was coming. They're going to start cutting things just to make it to where it's either not desirable enough, or they're going to just make it to where it's going to be best for TV. Because at the end of the day, that's where they make their money, is from the TV stuff, the streaming stuff and TV. No question about it. And, like Todd said, if you could make it on Major League Fishing, like the true old school MLF format, and for some reason you were getting paid $100,000 a year just to be on that part of that programming, and they figured out a way to pay all of you guys those 25 guys, that would be something to try to drive for.
Dude, I'm there. Like,
Yeah,
I'll say it right now. Yeah. Whatever the qualification, if they said, hey, and I know this isn't, hear me out. I know this couldn't happen, but say, hey, for the next 10 years, we got sponsors paid for it. It's all done. If you're in it for the next 10 years, this is how it's going to be, top 25. Dude, whatever that qualification is to get there, I'm doing it. Yeah. I'm doing it because it's worth it, because I know that's what's there waiting for me. We didn't fish the tour at the time because we knew that they could have told us what was going to be at the end of the rainbow, but we knew better. We knew that rainbow was going to change a whole bunch of different times, and the pot of the gold wasn't going to be a pot of the gold. We had no idea what it was. And to this day, 5-6 years later, we're not wrong. It has changed for 5 or 6 years. It has never been what they said it was going to be. But if they said it, dude, I'll be praising them, and I'm all on board. But it hasn't been like that. And a lot of people are like, hey, y'all stop complaining, you're whining. We're just trying to explain to people, like, dude, we call this and we're letting y'all know what's going on.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest problems right now goes back to kind of what you were saying too, with them jumping around on all these different qualifications. Just whatever the rules are going to be, come out with it and say, we're not changing this for the next 10 years, right? If it's a qualification standpoint or whatever, because a lot of the feedback I'm getting on my channel are people just, viewers saying, I am so sick of trying to keep up with just understanding like what the qualifications are, what the rules are. Like, are we 5 fish? Are we multiple fish? They're losing viewers because of that. Like these are like diehard MLF people that are like just getting fed up with it. And it really, like, there is a lot of potential opportunity here. I mean, let's say they came out and said, guys, we're going to create, they're going to basically create the old TV show and we're going to take the top 15 guys or whatever. Let's do a bracket style to get there. We're going to put, we're going to seed everyone based on the ranking. You guys are going to have to fish your way into it for year one. Like there's some cool made for TV drama that they could do out of it if they wanted to make it like draw attention to how you're getting into this new circuit. I mean, there's a lot of potential there. I mean, I know there's a lot of money that would have to be spent to get that to work, but I think you could draw a lot of interest to it by saying, hey, we're making this super circuit, this extremely exclusive deal. And if you could get the eyeballs on it, the dollars will follow.
Yeah. And dude, I'm all for it. The problem is, and guys started figuring this out when Emma, and I get it. The only way they could do this was inviting people, but they didn't invite the top 80 guys. They didn't. They invited the guys they wanted to, plain and simple. Okay. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, but they did. So no one qualified for the BPT when all that set. I've said it for 1,000 times. They asked the certain people to come, and when they did that, the good old boy system started. And so when all that started going down, they started figuring out how to protect the good old system. When you do that, this is what happens. And you, at some point in time, the problem is they tried. I find it ironic that a group of anglers, this is the best part. When I saw this is the first thought that popped in my mind. It took me an hour to talk about it. A group of anglers didn't like what was going on one circuit, formed another tournament trail from that group of anglers, right? That group of anglers didn't like how the other group of anglers did things. Some of them left. And now we have another trail, and those group of anglers are forming a committee against that trail. Like, how does anyone else find that completely ironic that like all that circled around that anglers keep on trying to like it cracks me up that that's what happened, but that's what went on, and that we're having it all over again. And because those guys, like Andrew said, you can't have guys trying to make the trail and fish the trail, because the guys who are trying to do that will win. Those guys, the guys that are fishing the trail and owning it, they will win in this scenario, and the trail will lose. Yep. And you have to have a guy outside of that looking from the outside in going, it's not about my ego, because I've always said that will be the death of MLF is ego. I've always said it. Ego will kill it. If you can get someone who does not care about being in the spotlight or anything, and he's like, I'm just going to run the best trail. I've said that. I've made tons of videos on YouTube about tournament trails. And I said, the best trail this is sad, but it's not the guy. All you have to be on being the best trail is the trail that does things the least worst, right? Not the best. You just got to be, trails are so bad that all you got to do is be somewhat decent, and you're considered the best trail. You could have a guy up there looking at this thing going, hey, we're just going to make the best trail ever, and it will succeed. It will blow everyone else out.
And the reality is I'm not even saying that Boyd made all these decisions by himself, because there's no way he made all these. But from the outside looking in, when you fish the trail and you're the CEO of the trail, that's what it looks like. So when decisions get made, it doesn't matter if you made the decision. The company that you're representing made the decision, and you not only work for them, but you fish for them as well. And so it just looks bad. It just is a bad look. And, because any directionalized, what's going on, or any direction you decide to go, it just makes it look even worse. And like 916 Kayak said, a union is a joke because fishermen can be replaced. Yes, and I just literally had this conversation right before I got on here by a buddy of mine that used to fish the Elite Series. And he told me same thing. He said, yeah, man, like, just look at Bass. They invited some people in and they got replacements fast. I said, but the reality is if BPT guys really wanted to get to Major League Fishing, what you do is when the day that the deposits are due or like whatever, everything goes down, you just don't pay them and nobody pays them. And then all of a sudden it changes the scope of everything that's going on, because once that money is due and everybody says, you know what, we're not paying our money today. And if there was a large collection of the field that said that, Boyd or anybody in the top management has to answer a lot of really hard questions. Why in the heck is our field not paying their deposits? And then all of a sudden it goes, hey, why are you not? They call Matt, say, hey, Matt, why'd you not pay your deposit? Be like, hey, I don't really agree with what's going on, and kind of taking a stand against this deal. Hey, they can go call everybody they want to, but they got a real short amount of time to find guys to pay that amount of money. And if that many anglers are saying no to it at that given point, we're not saying we're going to Bass, we're going to NPFL. We're just saying, hey, we're just not going to pay you our money right now. That causes a lot of chaos, and the more chaos that there is going on, the more that you're going to see change, unfortunately.
So let's say Andrew, that anglers went ahead and did that.
Yeah.
40 anglers say we're not paying.
That's not enough.
25, whatever it is.
You need.
I mean, at that point, you've just made the decision very easy for MLF to cut the field to 50 this year.
Maybe.
Like, you're not.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, from the standpoint of like the anglers getting together, we have to have one voice in order to make any sort of headway into this. It just goes back to what we said earlier. You're not going to get a super strong majority of anglers to go ahead and do everything as one unit. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it makes me wonder. I mean, there's a lot of angler owners, like, you're talking about Boyd Fishing and being the guy making the decisions. Well, there's a lot of owners that are fishing the tournaments too.
Well, there's whether they that bottom 40.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at. Like, I would love to have known if there were discussions that occurred with all of the owners / anglers, and like, was there a pile of kickback from those anglers that were probably going to get on the chopping block, or is this a business decision that's being made for the, to make sure that the business is around, so that those anglers who have invested quite a bit of money might actually get a return on their dollar, and they're willing to say, you know what, I might retire after this, or I might go do whatever. Like, there's a lot of different moving pieces here as to how this decision was made to do this.
It's real easy if you look at the press release, and that, like that's what I have to go off of as well. The press release said that the group was comprised of some of the original owners of the business. So obviously they don't have as much a voice as they originally did when it started, which is frustrating, because the amount of money I know that some of them put up once, not even once, but twice, 2 times into the business. And now that's like, hey, thank you for your money. We haven't paid you a dime back, but we're going to kick you out now. Thanks, though. I don't think they were any part of that conversation whatsoever. And I think that's why they're pissed. There would never even been an angler committee formed if they had been involved. And there's too many of them involved right now for them to just say, yeah, we accept this fate. This is the only way the business works. Because I don't think that they were really privy to that conversation.
All right. I got something for y'all. Well, one, and when I bring this up, I'm going to change. I'm going to do a whole left field, right? Get ready for this. I apologize about the comments, because I don't know what's about to happen here. The one thing why people can't do it, and I'll give this an example, but it is what it is. When Wheeler went with Duckett rods, Wheeler's never going to jump on board, right? I mean, he's with Duckett rod. You're not going to just go bash the company you're with, right? And there's so many. This industry looks really big. It's very small, guys.
Very
The industry is very, very small. And so someone is always connected somewhere. So like I remember if you had Bass Pro on your jersey, I remember that we were like, that guy ain't saying a word about any of this stuff, right? So with that being said, so I'm going to start putting this. I'm reading some of these comments, right? And say I'm an outsider looking in. I'm going to take the totally different perspective. Cutting the 30% is a bad thing. No, right? And this comment, right? So if, and I think a lot of people agree with some of this stuff about what we're talking about is like the return on investment. And then like someone on here was talking about Brian Thrift, that they didn't cover him very much in the Red Crest when he won. And some people were on here, not me, because I'm a Brian Thrift fan. I love Brian Thrift. But Brian is to me, he's funny, but I know him. You know what I'm saying? And like I find Brian Thrift very entertaining for other reasons, because he's unreal, right? I've shared a house with the man, and I've never seen someone freaking spool up 19 rods in freaking 30 minutes. I mean, he's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. But if someone's like, oh, he's not very good to watch. What if, hear me out, if we treated fishing more like the WWE? And I'm not a big wrestling guy, right? But obviously, they're not actually out there beating each other. Like, we're not taking the best wrestler, okay? Like, I'm not saying we're going to, do it to where we know who's going to win a tournament. But what if someone outside came in and said, I'm going to start a tournament trail, and I'm going to get Scott Martin, and there's a reason I'm going to say this. Scott Martin, giant following. Kevin Van Dam, giant following. Ben Milliken, giant following. Brian Latimer, big following, right? And you started getting guys that have a true legit following, not a fake Facebook, Instagram where you paid for, like you actually had a true legit following where people actually cared what you did. And you got 50 of those guys and you had them fish, and you made it more of entertainment learning. And if those guys, like, they're going to reap the rewards of more of a following. And if everyone just followed those guys, and it was still a tournament, like we're not making up who won or lost, but they actually went and just did that and said, kind of like maybe like what they did with golf. I'm not a real big golfer, but they went and got guys and paid them a whole bunch of money on the other tour. If they did that, I'm just asking, would that be successful?
What happened with that Live Golf, Todd?
I'm saying
they merged.
They merged back with the PGA.
Yeah, I know, it's funny. I think you're going to see the same thing happen here.
I do too.
Yeah, I think you're going to see either. I think they'll call it a merger, but it'll be like Bass buying back MLF, and then we've got to figure out a way to incorporate the anglers back into it. And then still, if Bass is smart, and I honestly think they have some pretty good leadership over there right now. I'm not saying they're perfect they make a lot of mistakes. And I think all organizations make a lot of mistakes. I think they have to all make the best decisions for the situation. All of them, even MLF, all of them. If Bass were to acquire MLF, I think you still have the MLF TV show, because it's so successful. Cut it to 20, 25 of your superstar, high-profile guys that have big followings, like Todd's saying, that are made for TV. I mean, it's truly just made for TV. Like, that's it. It's not anything more than that. And then you still have your Elite Series, and they could probably do an in-between trail of the Opens and the Elite Series, if they wanted to, even if they wanted to. But I mean, and then you have the BFL framework that obviously is super successful. And even the Toyotas, I don't even think you'd necessarily have to have those go away, for the fact that they're so regionally based. They're not like the Opens that travel all across the country. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. But, I mean, I think it's all going to go full circle. I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be the FLW tour that it was before, some type of, and it might not even say FLW, but it'll be some type of other tour. You'll have the Elite Series and you'll have Major League Fishing, like actual, like old school, like watching on TV, the original like 20, 25 guys. And that's just kind of where we're going to be. Whether or not Bass owns it or somebody else owns it, I really think we're going to go completely full circle and it's going to end at the exact same.
Do you know the chaos that will ensue when that happens for like 5 years?
And, I mean, honestly, it'll probably bring the industry closer together.
It will.
I really think.
Man, I'm telling you right now, whoever joins in, the worst thing they could do, maybe I'm wrong, the worst thing they can do is like invite people back or do any of that stuff.
I don't think you're not inviting back at that point. It's just a matter of,
well,
I mean, the question is how do you form the fields at that point? But I think I would envision it a lot like
that is inviting that, because you're setting up a system to figure out how that works, right? You're no offense, you're left out of that system. You would be left out, and it sucks.
I would be left out of the top. I think they would keep, you'd have your made for TV, which will be the 50 guys. They'll take 25 from each circuit, and then they'd have a level under that, whether that's the elites or, BPT, whatever. I think that's where everyone from the BPT and elites would be put in. And then at that point, it's a matter of, do we keep the Toyotas or the opens? And then you've got your BFLs.
Well, truth be told, like the way they do it is the 25 guys still fish the elites, because that 25 is literally just made for TV. Like that's all it is. It is a TV show, period. And then those 25 still compete in the Elite Series, which is the primary pay-in, pay-out tour, traditional Bassmaster, or not Bassmaster, but traditional bass fishing tournament structure. But that 25, that is your elite of the elite. And you qualify in, they kick out 5 every year. They bring 5 in every year. And it's made to be like that. It's made to be hard. It's not made to be easy to get into. But
and that's their marketing. That's the marketing side of it too. I mean, going back to what you were saying before, Todd, I've said for a while, bass fishing needs to figure out, are we in fact a sport? And if we are in fact a sport, it's based on talent alone, or are we a marketing vehicle? And if it's based on marketing, it's based on who can get the most eyeballs, because those are completely different things. There are anglers at lots of levels right now that are phenomenal anglers. And then you have anglers that have the followings that are just unbelievable, and they can, do what they want based on that. So like I could see the, let's say if this all went down in that form or fashion, I could see that top 25 made for TV thing being, okay, these are the guy, half that field is made just with people that have strong followings, and the other half are, the top 10 or 15 from points in the elites or something. That's more of like a superstar made for TV, type event thing. And then you've got the actual Elite Series or BPT tour, whatever you want to call it. But the question with all of that is, will either of the owning organizations be able to figure out a way to, give up some of the control, or give up some of the, different things that they've got to make that work so that it really excels tournament fishing?
Well, let me ask you this. Everyone keeps on talking about a merge, right? When this all first started, when this all first started with this merge thing, no one was trying to merge, right? When they split, they were trying to attack each other, and one was trying to put the other one under. Is that still a possibility? I mean, I have no idea, but I'm just saying, is there a possibility that one's like, you know what, why merge with them? When, to be honest with you, whoever decides to buy the other one, why buy them?
Well, so on the flip side of things,
I don't know. I'm asking, like, why buy if they're going under?
Yeah.
Let him go under, and
Yeah, but that's terrible for the fishing industry. Like,
I
I'll
agree.
tell you why.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's in this situation, it is better. And just from a business side of things, I mean, I understand if you want somebody to go out of business, like, buy. Like, if that's really your goal. But truth be told, there's a lot of, like you said before, this is a really small industry, a tiny industry, actually. In fact, if a company like MLF went under or Bassmaster went under, you're going to see the ripple effect throughout the entire industry, throughout I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing and advertising dollars that just got wasted, that they're not going to see any return on. You're going to see business. If you thought baits were expensive now, let something like that happen. If you thought boats were expensive now, let something like that happen. And everything is going to double in price. That's how it's going to work, because they've invested so much money in these organizations at this point. If you see them fail, it is going to be so bad. So bad for everybody. The average consumer, the everyday angler. You're going to see things get turned upside down, because organizations like this have so much pull and they're so big. It doesn't work. Like, so it's easier to buy the sinking ship, reformat the sinking ship. And I'm not even saying MLF is the sinking ship in this situation, just in general.
No,
it's easier to buy them out, use what they are doing as good, incorporate it into your business model, and it works. That's why FLW got bought. FLW was sinking bad. Yep. They were bleeding money out. It was so bad. And yeah, MLF could have just let them sink out, but they had the BFLs, they had the Toyotas, they had the membership base, and I understand why they would buy them, because you don't want FLW to fail. You don't want it to just completely go out of business, because then all of that's ruined. All of it's wasted. You just don't want that ripple effect. I mean, because you're talking grassroots anglers, BFLs, Toyotas, co-anglers. I mean, co-anglers are such a huge part.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Just because you don't, Bass could still do that, or MLF could still.
No, and to this guy's comment, I say he's a guy. Just this person's comment. Yes, in 3 or 4 years.
In 3 or 4 years,
it balances out. But that first 3 or 4 years is going to be horrible. Yes. Horrible. You're talking guys that are going to be unemployed, and not just one, not even 10, not 30 anglers. You're talking hundreds of guys that now are going to jam-pack the opens. They're going to jam-pack all these things. You're not going to be able to get in any tournaments. Things are going to cost through the roof.
Yeah.
It would muddy up. If y'all thought muddying up the water was guys switching from Bass to MLF and no. Let one of the organizations actually go out of business, and we got problems. Truly.
There's way too many synergies between the two organizations, that they can really, you take both, you combine them, you say these are the 3 or 4 best things Bass has, 3 or 4 of the best things MLF has, and you create an amazing organization by doing that from a tournament structure standpoint, and you get rid of all of those overlaps that aren't necessarily, cutting it or revenue generating streams. Like, it really does make a ton of sense, in my opinion, to do it. And it brings all the fans into one place too. So I don't know how much, I don't know what the value of that would be, but as soon as you bring everyone into one place, all the anglers, all the fans, and you've got things like the Classic, you've got, made for TV, Bass Pro Tour type thing. You've got your Elite Series, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got the Toyotas, the BFLs, and then you've got Bass Nation too, if you want to include that. I mean, there's a lot of, or the Federation, I should say, or whatever. You create one league. There's just so many synergies there that really brings value. To me, it's just a question of, can you get the two leagues to work together and figure out who's going to run what and how it's going to be done. Like, I feel like there's been, from the outside looking in, a lot of bad blood between the two organizations. And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but it looks like that. And if you're going to be talking about combining them, somebody's got to give up leadership in some form or fashion, and I don't know who takes over that leadership.
Well, I think honestly how MLF purchased, the whole purchase of FLW and how they incorporated the leadership in, yeah, there's going to be some people that head to the house. Like, that's just in any business. Anytime you have a merger, you're going to have people that aren't going to be a part of the organization anymore. There's no doubt about that. But like people like Kathy Fennell, she's just worked her way back into MLF, and now she's one of the top people, top executives of FLW or MLF now. You're gonna but Trish Blake, she went away. She's nowhere to be found. She's retired or working in some other business. I don't even know where she's at now. But you always have that switch. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's people giving up power. But I mean, let's just say, for instance, just hypothetically speaking, Bass buys MLF. The very, very top dogs are gonna be out. It's just where we're at. And then they're gonna incorporate some of the other people along the line. And maybe in that situation, Boyd, let's just say, for instance, Boyd decides he just wants to fish. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to do the management side of things anymore. I sold out. I'm done. I just want to fish now. And maybe they make some kind of concession to make it work. But I really think that I've always said that two trails work. I know it doesn't, in golf, they tried to and it didn't work and in certain places. But there's so many anglers, and now they built this sport up so much. We have all these high school and college anglers, and if we take out two organizations at this point and just wipe out everything that they've done, that leaves no home for a lot of kids that are trying to grow up and do this as a living. Now, I would go to say it's probably the worst thing you can do as a kid is to try to be a professional bass fisherman. It's a losing deal, 100%. But I just, as we are growing, we have to have places for people to land and fish tournaments. And if we don't have that, it causes way more problems than it helps.
Well, only one person has said this, and I just lost where this is like the whole union thing and all that stuff about why can't we ever form as a union and stuff like I wish I'd seen. He wasn't talking about that. Oh, here it is. No matter what we see, us three all look at it as a financial, we look at it from a wide variety of things, right? We've been doing this a long time. So we see the exposure side, we see the sponsorship side, we see the money side, we see the business side, we see it all. The problem with it is this right here, the BAM, there's 100 guys waiting to fish. Those 100 guys weren't the same. I personally don't believe that those 100 guys now look the same 30 years ago. I think those 100 guys wanting to fish 30 to 40 years ago were fishing the little local tournaments, trying to do build up. I don't want to say build up their resume, but do it in a different way. I think there was quite a few homegrown fishermen doing it out like the hard way. And it seems like now the new 100 guys, they don't care about anything what we're talking about. None of those guys who are even listening to this, they don't care about Bassmaster, FLW, not the same way we do, MLF. They're looking at it as, I got money. Where do I go? Where do I go do this fun thing? And they might call it a sport or living. They ain't worried about making a living. They want to make money, but not to provide for them. It's more of probably an ego thing. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying the way it's going and the way they're structuring how to qualify and do all this stuff. It's more of the guy who has the ability with money and there isn't worried about it. Those are the guys wanting to fish. You're not getting them on board. They could care less. They're here. And they're like, yeah, whatever, man. Just tell me where I need to fish. I'll pay my money. I'm good to go. And there's a lot of other guys trying to make it, and let me tell you something. If I was a business owner, I don't care about any three of y'all. Other than the spot, man, y'all freaking 100 guys that don't mind paying me money every week. Don't matter if y'all win or lose. I'll take y'all's money all day long.
Yeah.
That's why But that's why some people on here said, why don't you start a tournament trail? Because I'd want to do it the right way, and I'd run a trail probably into the ground, because I would try to do things the right way. And to be honest with you, sometimes you need someone maybe the opposite of me, because some of those guys make really good business owners. I don't like working for them. That's why I don't work for them. There's some guys made a lot of money off businesses doing things the shady. They don't care who they step on. They don't care who they screw over. That's not me. I think I would do a horrible job, and I'd probably do it the right way, and it'd probably go right into the ground. I would hope it wouldn't, but I'm just saying.
Well, yeah.
What?
I'm reading comments. Sorry.
Oh, well, by the way, maybe YouTube should buy Bass. Well, that was kind of what I was talking about the whole marketing. Oh, I guess Matt mentioned it. That's kind of what I was talking about, is like, it seems like it should be that's where it's kind of heading. And I don't know, they want it to be both right now. Don't you agree, Matt? Like, they want to have
100%.
the best fishermen, but behind closed doors, they're going, hey, they're hoping they can get more Kevin Van Dams. I don't know about Ben Milliken, because and what I mean by that is not in a bad way. We don't know what he proved. He got in. We don't know how he's going to fare over the next couple of years. Like, time will tell. But I guarantee you, they're hoping like heck he freaking does good in these elites, because he's a guy they probably want. They're hoping they get more guys like that, but that doesn't mean they're going to.
Well, and it doesn't mean that, regardless of whoever it is, if you've got a big following, that's phenomenal for the organization. The problem is, it doesn't always mean it's the best angler. And that's where you got to go back to deciding, what's the goal here?
What's the goal
from the tournament organization standpoint? Is it to get views, or is it to try to find the best anglers? Well, and in some rare occasions, with when you start looking at guys like Scott Martin and Ben Milliken and Latimer, I mean, they're very good fishermen with a very big following, and it's like that is the ideal to have if you could have a full field like that. The thing is, you're right now, I don't think you're gonna have a full field like that. Like, you're just not gonna have it.
So what all three of us did was we stopped relying on the organization for a platform, and we all figured out how to start our own. Okay. And some guy said, we're not Jacob Wheeler. I think last week, the comment, none of us are Jacob Wheeler, so we don't have a brand. Yeah, you saw that one. And I was going, none of us said we had a Jacob Wheeler brand, but we did. We have a bigger brand now than we did 4 years ago. So maybe MLF and Bass should do a better job on their branding, because it'd almost be like, okay, I'm going to be the most boring podcaster in the world, and my goal is to have really interesting people on, right? That's kind of the mindset they're looking at, if that's the case. Instead of being, hey, we're the most interesting platform there is, and we're going to have really good, interesting people on, that would do a better. So, I mean, they have to take some responsibility, that they have to put on a better product, right? You can't just rely solely on the anglers to be the people who entertain. So, I mean, because we're not doing that, we took a chance on ourselves, and maybe they need to do a better job of taking that upon themselves and putting out a better product. I don't know what that product is, but they need, maybe,
dude,
they've got the people.
It just comes down to, again, how small tournament fishing, the niche community of tournament fishing fans is so small compared to overall fishing. Like, you would think if an angler went and won a tournament, that when you relate that to social media, you'd see social media explosion on his accounts. You don't. But if that angler goes and tries to build his own account himself by putting up a funny video or doing whatever that hits on social media, they'll get way more growth from that than they will from potentially winning a tournament at a national level. And to me, that's just clearly because the percentage of people that are watching that tournament is minuscule compared to the overall base of people that could stumble upon something on social media. And I don't know how you correct that. I'm just simply stating that you're not like the tournament organizations, because all they're offering is tournaments, have a much smaller audience than what you can get outside of tournament fishing. You know, the sport of fishing as a whole with all the different species is much larger. And I think, you know, that was one thing that was mentioned. I think Boyd mentioned it in his statement that came out, that they were looking to get, I forget the word he used. It was not like unusual fans or not, you know, typical fans, non-typical fans, whatever it was. And I think that's what the hope is that we can figure out a way to bring non-diehard tournament fans into the sport. And you got to figure out a way to do that, because otherwise you're talking about a really small niche market, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the actual tournament fan standpoint is so terribly small in the whole big scheme of just fishing in general. Like 90% of people out there, 95% of people out there could care less. Wouldn't even know who KVD was if he walked in a room. Truly. Like,
yeah.
And he's probably one of the most recognized. Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance, even Bill Dance can walk into a room and people don't know who he is. Like, who's that guy? Like, I don't know who that guy is.
Especially if they don't have a hat on. Take their hat off, nobody will notice them.
Yeah, and so it's just fishing is big in our own minds. My wife actually makes fun of a fisherman all the time because she's like, y'all think you are a big deal. You aren't nothing. Nobody knows who you are. But she's not wrong, because in the scheme of things, the big scheme of things, people don't know who the heck we are. I mean, outside of our small group of people that watch us and stuff like that, it is important that we've created our own platforms. But I want to say something about one of the comments. I got one guy on here that he's been commenting on all my stuff. And he's definitely an anti-bass guy, and I don't really know why he's coming at me. I guess because I talk about MLF or something. I can't even find his comment now. But basically, he just said that he couldn't wait for Todd and Andrew to all our points that were our cynical.
Oh, I saw that one too. I'm like,
he's commented, or that person's commented on every video that I posted lately, and it's always negative. And the reality is, I could be completely wrong. And I can own it. Like, if I'm wrong, like, I'll be like, hey, I was 100% wrong in this situation. But the writing is on the wall on a lot of this stuff. Like, I want MLF to succeed. I really do. I have no problem with MLF. I think it is imperative to the sport that they are successful. What I don't like, and I will never be okay, is when they take advantage of the anglers. They sweep things from under the feet of the anglers. I will always be a supporter of anglers. And if that gets me fired, that gets me in trouble, and people don't like me and they want to call me names, fine. Because I will 100% always support the guys, my friends, my brothers out there that are fishing MLF, fishing bass, fishing MPFL. Because let's say, for instance, something happened on the Elite Series and they tried to do that. You think I wouldn't make a video about that? Heck yeah, I would. I'd go to fight them too. And MPFL the same way. Because I will always call a spade a spade. And that's why, in my opinion, that's why I've been successful in this industry. That's why companies like Lose and Strike King and Bass Cat and others have kept me around for so long, is because I always speak the truth. Like, I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt. I'm going to tell you exactly what the problem is, but I'm also going to be productive and proactive and try to give you reasons and ways to make it better, or give you ideas on ways to make things better. I'm not always going to be the pessimist that says, oh, that just sucks, that's terrible, and then walk away. Be like, hey, like, that's probably not the best, way to go about this. Maybe we should try this or that, and give options. And all I'm saying in this situation about MLF is the fact that they sold a lot of promises to a lot of anglers, and they have completely wipe the floor with all of those things that they said.
I don't know. That comment bothered me because if anything, that there's 4 or 5 guys that have openly, like, it's weird how comments you get guys going, "Hey, Todd and Andrew, Matt, maybe not Matt so much, but Todd and Andrew, why don't y'all speak up? Why don't y'all spill the beans on this? Why don't you?" And then we go and actually have conversations like this. We had these things 4 or 5 years ago when this all went down. It came true. Like, we have said this. We left the tour for these reasons, and then the tour over the next couple of years did this. MLF, they did exactly what we said was going to happen. And now this guy's going, "Oh, watch what happens when it doesn't come true." Sorry, buddy. Maybe everything we said here doesn't come true, but we were right for the last 5 years. I don't mind saying that.
Yeah.
And once again, Dusty, dude, you don't even know how bad we would love to talk about this. All I can say is this. It was just like I brought up the thing before. There's a bunch of rumors. There's a bunch of talk. It's weird how it centers around the same people and the same thing. And it's not just room. It's like it's coming from a lot of different things. And all I can say is this. I don't say a guy paid someone $5,000 for waypoints, right? And say it was 3,000 instead of 5,000. I don't want to get that number wrong because I think $1 is too much. But my point is like, I know something's there. It's very hard when it's not in writing, right? But I kind of trust the people that are saying it, and it's coming from a lot of different places. But I will say this, if anything else, go look at the Opens rules last year. And they have not come out with the Open rules this year. But go look at the Opens rules last year and go look at new rules for this year. Is all I'm going to say. And I'll be surprised if there's not a rule talking about paying for things. So
no, there's 100% going to be a rule. I can tell you right now, there's going to be a rule about.
I know, but like, we already know
it's going to happen.
We want to talk about it, but man, I refuse to do it. I know, I don't know all, but I know quite a bit. But I'm just not going to do it because I can't like be 100% accurate, and I don't want to be 100% accurate.
I'm not even saying that anglers did it, but I'm going to tell you there's going to be a rule about it.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I've never seen them make a rule that didn't come from what happened the year before.
Yeah. I mean, there's literally rules that, like, I remember there was David Dudley rules, but like on tour, it was always like, "Oh, that's the David Dudley rule because he did this." Shimano Shane, get a real job like the rest of us. I have a real job.
I want to see Shimano Shane explain to me what a real job is. Go ahead. He can comment and tell me.
I mean, it's just, is. But I mean, I have a real job, y'all. It's funny. The thing about professional fishing that people don't get is they truly think, they honest to God think it's like Todd gets free boats, free motors, free graphs, free this, free stays at hotels. I mean, everything's free in our world. We get paid like. Yeah, that's not how it works. Maybe for like Kevin Van Dam. Maybe for like Jacob Wheeler. But there's a lot of guys that are still paying for a lot of stuff, guys. Like, that's the harsh reality of bass fishing.
He might have been.
Okay.
My bad. Okay. My bad. Come on.
Hey, Todd.
Throw it, Shane. Throw an LOL or a smiley face on there. Come on, man.
No, that did. Todd's been told to get a job too many times, pushed a real button.
Dude, hey, what's funny is no one has ever done that to my face. Everyone to my face tells me, and I always correct them because they're always like, "Hey, man, you got an awesome job." And I'm like, "Well, tell that to my wife because she doesn't think it's a job." Because I'm always joking around. I'm like, "Man, I'm like, it's not, I got the best job in the world." Like, even if I made like very little money and whatever, I'd still tell people I have the greatest, like, to me, it's an awesome job. It's the coolest thing I could ever do. I've never wanted to do something else. And everyone that talks to my face is like, hey man, people don't really know how much you work and how much you've sacrificed and how much, like, how many weekends you've missed weddings and kid stuff. And I mean, all through, and you're out there 14 hours a day. I'm like, yeah, it's not a job. I don't feel like it's a job because I love it. Like, I wouldn't want to go work somewhere else for 14 hours, but for 14 hours sitting in freaking 100-degree weather, not getting and shaking fish off for 7 days, not actually catching a fish. I don't know if y'all realize that, but there's days where, I might go 6 days in a row and never actually land a fish, and it's 100 degrees. Dude, I love it. Like, do you have a good, like my wife's like, you have a good day today? I'm like, yeah, man, I shook off like 40 fish. It was 100 degrees today. I'm tired of whatever. Yeah. What are you going to do tomorrow? Same thing. It was awesome. Now, I don't do that every day, but like, I love that.
I tell you that my favorite is when you go flipping and you're flipping like bushes, grass, whatever, and you shake off a bunch in a day, and you're like, oh my god, I cannot wait to set like that first fish that you set the hook on. You're just mad at it.
We all know the flipping bite where it goes down in the grass and it goes twing and it's just slack, and you're like, big one, and you're like, shake it off. And we get excited. Like, I get more excited shaking fish off.
Oh yeah.
But dude, I cannot tell you how many times back in the day I'd be freaking throwing a frog and like a 9 or 10 pounder blows up on it. I'm like, push the button, and I'm like, all right. And anyone else would be like, dude, that would be my biggest fish of my lifetime. And I'm like, yeah, there it goes, swimming off.
The times you shaking off bedfish that were like 12, 13, 14 pounders.
A lot on Toledo
and people
Bend.
don't even realize that like that actually happened.
Toledo Bend, I guarantee, like, I've probably shaken off, I don't even know how many, like, I bet you I've shaken off 20 fish over 10 pounds on Rayburn and Toledo over the years. Some of them we caught in tournaments because we weighed them in, but then other ones, like, they're gone, and you're just like,
oh well.
You saw one of them.
Oh yeah.
Or you didn't see one of them, but you know which one I was talking about. But
dude, that was so, yeah.
It's still fun. Like, it's still fun. Like, we're not, like, maybe we do complain a little bit on it. You missed the part where I said, hey, Toyotas are the best tournament troll ever.
No, you'd already told me you thought that.
Yeah, like, is it a job? I mean, I don't consider it a job. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. We don't know really when we're going to get paid, or we don't know if they're going to have a tournament trail next year. Matt doesn't know what's going to happen to him. Matt might be the president of MLF next week. We don't even know.
Yeah, he probably will be.
He probably will be. I'm stating that. I'm booking that. That's my prediction.
He's just hooking us on. He's like, hey, watch this. I would really make these guys look bad.
That's why we had him on here.
I will neither deny or prove that.
Oh, there it is. There's a chance.
No,
it's always a chance.
I just love being able to sit on here and chat about this stuff in an open dialogue. Because I mean, guys, this is the exact conversation that both of you, I'm sure, have had 5 to 25 times in the last couple of days with every other angler, right? That reaches out and calls up. Like, this is just us having our normal conversations. And, from a fishing standpoint, I always feel like the misconception sometimes between the fans and the anglers, when this thought is like the anglers should just be happy to have the job that we have, right? Like, or go get a real job. Like, when those comments come out, I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that if you're a fan watching the tournaments, I feel like coverage has gotten so much better over the years that anglers have become bigger names to the fans, if that makes sense. Meaning there's more live coverage, there's more YouTube. Like, the fans really get to know the anglers a lot better, which is awesome. But if you're an angler, you're sitting here going, over the last 10 or 15 years, the sport as a business for us has actually gone downhill. So I think there's sometimes a misconception where the anglers are like, why are these guys unhappy? They get to fish for a living. And it's like, yeah, we do get to fish for a living, but we also were making more money back in the day. And now it's gotten tougher to make this living. And which I'm okay. Like, I'm okay working harder because I love the sport. I love doing this stuff and doing everything fishing related, because I don't want to go back to my old desk job.
Let me ask you this real quick. Maybe the last thing we get on. has it gotten tougher to make money, or so? I think overall, okay, I don't know. Let me think about this for a second. Do you think it's gotten tougher to make money, but don't you think there's more opportunity to make money?
Yeah, so this is hard for me to answer because,
I
you know,
know.
and maybe we all kind of are in the same boat, but for
Yeah.
the first good portion of my career, I just wanted to fish. I just wanted to let my fishing do the talking, and I was doing decent, cashing checks, but I really wasn't doing what I should have been doing to build a career, to build my personal brand, and to do all of that. So now where I'm at now, yeah, I absolutely feel like there's a lot of opportunity for anglers that want to go above and beyond just fishing tournaments. Now it's a lot of additional work because I think all of us would probably sit here and say, like, Todd, you were just mentioning comments before about how people just there's this idea that we just fish. But like right now, I mean, my wife is like, Matt, are you not going to stop working? Like, and 10 years ago, or heck, 5 years ago, it wasn't that way. It was, I almost felt guilty. Like she'd get up to go to her job and I'd be laying in bed still. And like, I could almost sense there was a little resentment there. Like, I don't have a real job. Right. And now it's completely flip flopped where it's like, Matt, can we like go to dinner or can we take some time off? And, so I think for the anglers that really want to explore some of these other potential opportunities, there's a lot of opportunity out there to generate revenue. But if you're looking to do it through tournaments, that income source has gone down. I don't care how anyone puts this out there. It is shrunk over the last 10 years for sure.
So I know there are some comments on here, and most of the guys from Texas will know what I do. But for 10 years, I did just tournaments. Like, now I'd say 95% of my income was just tournaments for like 10 years. And now I had to fish a bunch of them, but over those 10 years later, I couldn't make any more money doing it. And I would have to go fish 40 something tournaments again to get to that level of doing it again. Which I do not want to do, because that was I don't think I possibly physically could. But I didn't know, there wasn't somewhere telling me how to make this money somewhere else. Like, everyone always said, go get a sponsor. To this day, I have no idea sometimes how to go get a sponsor. I don't even know what that means. Right.
Yeah.
I'm in relationships with sponsors because I have relationships with people, but I've never sent in an email to a company asking for a sponsorship. I've never done that in my entire life. Maybe that's my problem. I don't know. But also my sponsors I've had for now quite some time, I've all stuck with them, right? They're great individuals, they're great companies, they're great people, but I didn't know how to for a long time on how to do what you were saying. Like, all I did was fish. I didn't really know how to do the other. And you got to realize, when you're not on the elites, and at the time there was no MLF, it was a very weird thing to go do that. And I'm not a guy who's going to go around my town. I have a hard time going around asking people for money. I know people do it. I'm horrible at it. I've never thought, it feels weird to me. It feels like a handout. I don't know. Even I've had some guy ask me one time, wanted to do something, and I was like, man, I don't really think that's good for you. And someone's like, you just turn down money like that? I'm like, I don't have a good way of I want to be 50-50 in our relationship. So like, if you're giving me money, I want to make sure I can get you 50%, I want to get you return on what you're paying me. And I didn't think I could at the time.
Well, that's why we haven't gotten a sponsor for the fantasy show. I mean, I get people all the time like, man, why don't you have a sponsor for your fantasy show that we do? And then it has great views, and like, it's a real small series, 8 or 10 episodes basically. And we still don't have one because I don't even know how to ask for that. Like, I don't know, I mentioned it to one sponsor and they were like, man, we'd love to do that. And then like, that's just kind of where it ended. Like, we didn't like finish, how do you ask for something like that? How do you go and say, hey, like, you know,
I
somebody's
don't
going to
know.
benefit from it whenever they eventually do it. But like
Anyone that did, and like I said, if it was a product, so like I'm very pleased with like my sponsors, because it's why I do my YouTube the way I do. I do my YouTube because I can show what I'm doing to actually make a living fishing. And in those tournaments, I show me using my products, like Strike King stuff, Lou stuff, Sunline. Like I wear my Costa sunglasses every single day. I do that, and I have 100% confidence in that. Or even for me, because I would have never have sold myself for something lower, because for 10 years, if your only income is fishing tournaments, you couldn't have paid me enough really to. And I say, like, someone's like, oh, you're going to get all this product for free. I'm like, dude, that's not going to pay me bills. Like I'm going to fish with what's ever going to make me money in a tournament, regardless if I'm sponsored or not. So I have a very high standard when it comes to someone. Like I'm using their product hands down, or I'm not going to ever be in a relationship with them. So like if anyone ever came on here and was like, hey, here's something, if I liked it, I would, but if not, I wouldn't. But yeah, we would talk about it all the time on this deal right here. We don't care, but not that we don't care. That's not what we're doing it for at the moment. I think we're just doing it because all three of us, we love, by the way, all three of us guys, we all talk about how much we love doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right?
I mean, I'm just be honest. I don't have the time in the day to sit for 2 hours and talk about bullcrap if I didn't enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just being on. I mean, I'm literally, my wife pulled up
as Matt looks around, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. I mean,
No,
my wife,
dude,
I'm
I feel
in her
the same
parking
way.
lot.
I feel the same
I'm
way.
in my wife's parking lot at her nurse practitioner deal, and she just pulled up next to me, and I had to get off real fast. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm on live right now." She's like, "You've been here for 2 hours," and I'm like, "I know, my bad."
Which is probably a good. By the way, I had talks with these people because I know the head distiller, and once again, one of the marketing people got let go, and then a new marketing person came on. Like they've been through marketing stuff, so trust me, that was the one. But it wasn't going to be a random cold call. It was, I knew like the head distiller. I still do. I talk to him almost every other day.
Dude, that's how the sponsors come about. At least for me, it's all relationship based. If I cold call or reach out to people I don't know, it's not going anywhere. You're so much better off developing a relationship, because even if it takes longer to get that sponsorship, I mean, in my experience, they turn into like long-term sponsorship deals, like, because you know who you're working with. And to go back, there was a question you had up, Todd, about the revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Like
no.
There's
that's not even like a maybe be honest deal. That's like an easy trust me. No. If anything, like I said, I don't want to get into that whole deal about my conversation after 2 years ago after the championship about me having to pay $800 more to fish the invitationals the next year. And we're going to have a camera in the boat. And I was like, so I have to pay y'all $800 more for entry fees, so y'all put a camera in my boat? Yeah, I'm out. They want to talk about ranting. I can get on that rant.
Oh God, we don't have enough time for that.
We
Todd.
don't have enough time, but it's
you
awesome.
You need to secure that whiskey sponsor, and then we'd have more time.
Dude, I'm trying. I tried really hard for a long time. And like I said, we had emails and we were talking about having a meeting. And then next thing you know, one of the people was let go, and it became it. I don't know where it's at now.
I've been working on like multiple microbrews up here in Wisconsin, because there's like 35 in every town. It's like, no. I'm like, it's such a perfect fit. Damn.
Listen, the TX whiskey, it literally is in Fort Worth. It's Texas bound. I would hope someone would say I'm maybe the spokesperson for Texas. I fish more tournaments in Texas than anyone. I've been doing it I'm like, this fits. The people we have, actually, that's your that's your people. I mean, you're not going after 17 and 18-year-olds like the Guggen squad. You're going after hopefully 21-year-old, like, but really not even them. You're really going for an older crowd. Like, when I say older, guys that start kind of liking a nicer whiskey, not your freaking cheapest one you can find before you go out on college night, 30 years older and up. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And yeah, I thought it was. I'm not asking for like, $100,000 or nothing. I just wanted to like, hey, my deal is like, hey, let's start something and see what happens. Like if you like where it's going, we can talk later about it. But just, I'm there. Not for me. Hey, look, man, I like a little whiskey at the house, but it's been a long time since I've had any.
Yeah, no,
a while.
In a DWI lawyer.
I'll bring some to Watson and Ish.
Oh gosh, no, that's a terrible idea.
Well, I think we have Wednesday off. Before, and so I think
now you want to talk about a dumpster fire? You get those two together with dumpster fire.
Yeah, the championship. I talked to Ish because Ish didn't even know any of this. I talked to him yesterday. I said, "Well, hey, when you get in here, we're gonna do a live with you and Watson. It's gonna be great." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm getting there Sunday or something." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "I can't practice for 5 days." I'm like, "Yeah, me neither. But we only get 4." He's like, "No, Wednesday." I'm like, "No, Wednesday's off day." And he was like, "What?" And so I was like, "Yeah, we get Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off day." Then he tried looking it up in the rules, couldn't find it. And then I texted Mark. Mark texted me back this morning that we have Wednesday off. So I was like, "Hey, let's do that. Let's do a live Wednesday." So I might have to bail on y'all next whatever, but
I'll watch it.
With Watson and Ish. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, me and Matt are gonna get our own podcast together, and
y'all
we're gonna sit and talk at the exact same time as y'all and talk crap about y'all.
No, you should wait till we're done and then have it going in the background like, "Hey, look, Todd's talking again," which I find really ironic that I've had some people go, "Hey man, you do talk quite a bit during a podcast." And I'm like, okay, well, so I got a plan for that guy. This is what he wants.
Oh my God! I thought you like lost connection for a second because you normally always talk.
Well, I mean, he's like, you talk. I'm like, that. What are we supposed to be doing? Like jumping jacks in the background?
Actually, the best comment earlier was someone said that Todd talks for 80% of the time. I talk for 15% of the time, and Matt talks for 5% of the time. And most of the time, we're just sitting there listening to Todd going full circles before he can go to his actual right answer. So, or what he's trying to point. Or the point he's trying to make. So,
Hey,
I'm not going to talk at all in this one. I'm just going to let them two freaking go at it.
No doubt. Ish can talk over the best of them. There ain't no doubt about that.
It's going to be. You know who I should invite Matt on for about 5 minutes and not let him talk at all.
I feel like those guys would eat me up pretty good. In a good way. I'll let you handle Watson and Ish on your own.
It's going to be great. I will say that if anyone fishes with me, unless I know you, any co-owner that might get on here and be like, "Yeah, man, I don't think that guy said a word in 8 to 10 hours."
I know it is weird how you are like that.
Oh. Yeah, easily. I never talk at all.
Yeah, you wouldn't shut up the other day on our TV show, though.
That's because all you do is complain about anything I do, and you lost 19 fish the other day. And if I lose
that many,
if I lose one, it's like I did something wrong. Don't ever do a show with them. Like he'll just
dude. He about destroyed my leg and he almost destroyed Jared's head with a hybrid hunter and my leg with a hybrid hunter.
Yeah, I made someone bleed yesterday too. That was good.
Goob. Can't tell you.
I had a good day.
You sound a little wild in the boat.
No,
it was Jared's fault. Just
So
ask him.
I will say this. I did hit Jared with a bait yesterday. Andrew has me on his boat behind him. Jared's over there all up in my face from the back deck. And I will say, I didn't hook him, but I was like, hey, that would be the first time in my entire life. I didn't hook him. So I've never hooked anyone in my entire life of all the times I've ever been fishing. Not once.
That's good. That's good.
I think it is. I've been hooked.
You still sound wild. I'd be afraid to be your co-angler.
No, I'm
hybrid hunters flying everywhere.
No, I'm pretty mellow.
It was just a roll cast, and Jared walked into it. That's what Todd
he's
said.
like getting all up in my grill. You know.
He was on the back deck, and Todd literally stepped back and smoked him in the ear.
But every
ear.
Yeah, but like I swear, in the first 30 minutes, because I'm always running the trolling motor. For the first 30 minutes, I hear this: Todd, take a couple steps back. Todd, take a couple steps back. Constantly, Todd. So I'm constantly taking steps back.
But Todd went the wrong direction. He went back towards the back deck and not like towards the side.
Well, listen. So I'm supposed to fish from one side of the boat on the I'm not going to sit on the opposite side of the boat and cast across the boat.
Why?
That's stupid. I'm not doing that. Just watch out.
You're hard to deal with, Todd.
Listen.
Bass fishing prima donnas, they're tough.
Yeah.
They're tough.
Next time, don't invite me.
Who treats co's better? I'll end on this because I actually have to go. I definitely treat co-anglers better than Todd does. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever.
I bring jerky for mine.
Well, of course you do, Mr. Bridgeford man.
Hey. It's part of the deal. My co-anglers get jerky.
I'm quiet.
No, you're a butthole.
No, I'm quiet.
All right, we're name calling. Wrap this one up, Todd. Good luck next week.
Yeah.
Hey, don't suck next week, Todd.
I have Watson and Ish. It's great.
Hope you get good viewers, Todd. We'll see you later.